Cool. I met Ilan indirectly through Peter Bukowski, and that was an unusual meeting. This told me more about Ilan than all the credentials that he has and everything else. You can share those with him if you like, Ilan. But I had heard through Peter Michael, who's part of our environment leadership team, that there was a white paper written on the value of synthetic concrete in terms of reducing carbon emissions into the atmosphere, which fascinated me because being an architect. And I downloaded that and just kind of forgot about it. As a matter of fact, it took me a while to find it after I downloaded it. But it was probably close to 3 weeks after that, I heard from Peter Bukowski, and he co-copied Ilan, who I'd never met. And for some reason, Peter, whatever I said, attracted him, and he wanted to link up with me. I didn't hear from Ilan for another 3 weeks or so. And then the first thing he said to me, and this is what continues to speak volumes about who Ilan is, he apologized to me for not getting back to me sooner because he was at COP27 with the Congress of Parties. And that says more about Ilan and his commitment to personal relationships, as well as his passion for the environment. So Ilan, it gives me great pleasure to have you with us this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chuck, and thank you for your kind words. With your permission, I'll take a minute to reciprocate. Since I started working with Chuck, that was maybe 8 or 9 months ago, I found a true partner in his passion and his commitment to the climate, but really to the future of humanity and to all of our grandchildren. And so thank you very much, Chuck, for this, and I'm looking forward to many years of working together until we fix this problem. So welcome everybody. It's great to be here with you. My name is Ilan Mandel, and I'm calling you from Israel. I grew up in Israel, but then moved to California about 22 years ago. I spent a couple of years in the Silicon Valley and then moved to Los Angeles. And in my background, professional background, I'm a software engineer and an architect of information systems and organizational systems and financial systems and all kinds of systems. I think about the world in terms of systems and processes. After becoming a father and starting to ask myself questions, like how can I keep my daughter safe? You know, it's easy when they're 2, 3, or 4, but then it gets more complicated when they get older. And that quest or journey led me to work in the space of the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN since the Paris Agreement in 2015. And then in 2017, I was lucky to meet Peter Fiakovsky, the man that came up with the vision of climate restoration and literally wrote the book on climate restoration. That book can be downloaded or bought on Amazon. And maybe at the end, we can send you a quick summary with some of these links so you can reach out and look for the book if you haven't seen it yet. So Peter was the man with the vision. And after a few years of researching and talking to experts about the climate crisis, he came to the conclusion that adaptation and mitigation is not enough. Maybe that was enough 30 years ago, but now it's not enough anymore because there is already too much carbon dioxide, too much greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, that even if we stop all emission tomorrow morning, which is obviously very unlikely, we're still going to get the worse and worse climate event, extreme weather events, droughts, floods, fires, and so on. So for us to resolve the climate crisis, we need to focus on those 3 strategies: adaptation, mitigation, and restoration. And our group, which has been working together since 2017, is focused on climate restoration as the third leg of the stool, or the third strategy. So today I'm going to talk to you about climate restoration. And before that, I'm going to say just a few more things about what we did over the last 6-7 years. In 2017, the first organization that we launched was the Foundation for Climate Restoration. I served as the founding CEO for the first couple of years. Our focus then was to get the word out from thoughts and ideas that were in Peter's head. We created a set of white papers and media events and so on to let people know that climate restoration is crucial. 2-3 years after that, I moved back to Israel, and we launched in Israel the Climate Restoration Network. The purpose of the Climate Restoration Network is to accelerate the implementation on the ground. Last year, when I was in COP27, we launched the Climate Restoration Safety and Governance Board that is responsible for making sure that the climate restoration projects that we're doing are safe, effective, and achieve wide ethical consensus, right? This is not the work of one group or one company or one organization. This is about everybody. And so we need to make sure that all the voices are heard, all the opinions are considered, and anybody that is impacted should have a seat at the table. So that's the purpose of the Safety and Governance Board. And then a few months ago, we launched the Grandparents Fund for Climate Restoration, which, as we see it, is the umbrella or the aggregator of all the climate restoration organizations. What we're going to do next year is something that I'm going to cover in my presentation. So it's great to be here. Joe, my colleague, if you can say hi. Yes, Joe is from Minnesota. Joe, can you put the slide on? So when I mentioned Peter, the man with the vision, can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, hold on. Maybe oh, there it is. Okay. Peter was a man with a vision. In 2017, when we met, we translated that vision into a goal, and the goal is climate restoration by 2050. So removing all the excess CO2 from the atmosphere by 2050. We have a little under 30 years to do that, but it's doable, and I'm going to share the roadmap with you. But you can see in this slide that the climate restoration is no longer just a vision or a goal. It's actually a project, and this is, I think, one of the most exciting things that I feel, being on this journey for the last 6 or 7 years, is that we're actually going to start early next year the work of restoring the climate. So that's very exciting, and this is part of why I'm talking to you here now, is because it's time for us to get everybody involved and engaged, and doing what they can to ensure that our grandchildren and future generation will have a livable planet. So let's go to the next slide. This is a hopeful presentation, right? What I'm going to share with you is a way out of this crisis, not just to avoid the worst consequences or, try to survive, but actually reverse global warming and get back to a world that is livable, a world that humanity can flourish in. But obviously, the situation right now is not great. We're not heading in the right direction. Emission reduction is not moving at the pace that we want. So things are concerning, and some people might even lose hope. So we're going to quickly move to the next slide, which is going to give us a little bit of a view into where we are. I'm sure some of you have seen, many graphs like this, but the point is that over the last 10, or in this case, 12,000 years since the last ice age, humanity has evolved in what we call a safe harbor climate. It's the perfect climate for civilization to evolve. And the measurement for that, the indicator of a perfect climate, is the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere. So over the last 12,000 years, the CO2 concentration was below 300 ppm, or 300 parts per million. You can see on the right side that in the last few years, or the last few decades, as population grew, as we got more industrialized and we needed more energy, the CO2 concentration went up very, very quickly. And today we're at around 420 parts per million. So almost 50% higher than what we know humanity can survive and flourish in. The concerning thing is that the Paris goal, right, which is named net zero by 2050, meaning that by 2050, we need to reduce our emission and increase our capacity to remove CO2 from the atmosphere such that there is net zero of CO2 going into the atmosphere. That is not going to help us deal with the legacy CO2 that is already in the atmosphere. So this is not a meaningful or not a good enough goal. And so what we've set out to do 6 or 7 years ago, since 2017, is to change the course, change the goal, focus on what we really want, which is climate restored, a safe climate, healthy climate for our children and grandchildren and future generation. So in order to do that, we'll go to the next slide. So this is our roadmap. And very simply put, we're setting out to resolve the climate crisis, reverse global warming, and based on this roadmap, we expect warming to go back to 0 degrees above pre-industrial temperatures. So I'm going to start from left to right, right? So 2024, next year, we're going to do small-scale projects to test the operation, to test the technologies, the solutions, and make sure that what we're doing is monitored, measured. We have safety and governance measures in place. And then over the next few years, until the end of the decade, we're going to scale up climate restoration operation until we get to full scale at the end of the decade, 2030. Now, climate restoration is about removing the excess CO2 from the atmosphere. And if we want to get to net zero by 2030, it means that we need to pull out of the atmosphere around 70 gigatons of CO2 every year, right? With the assumption that we're still going to have some emissions that we couldn't eliminate completely. So if we have, let's say, 20 gigatons compared to today's 36 gigaton of emission every year, if we reduce that to 20 gigatons and we have the capacity to remove 70 gigatons from the atmosphere every year, that means that we're going to remove net of 50 gigatons every year from the atmosphere. And if we do that for 20 years between 2030 and 2050, then by 2050, we would have removed the excess trillion ton of CO2 in the atmosphere and go back to 300 ppm. So by 2050, we will consider the climate crisis solved. CO2 levels are back to safe levels. And as we do that, we're going to see also all the other changes like transitioning to renewable energy, taking care of our waste problem, transitioning to circular economy and so on. So by 2050, we could say that this crisis is behind us. And now we need to just let Earth go back to its natural state, cool off until the end of the century. So just very quickly, by a show of hands, who thinks this plan is better than net zero by 2050? Okay, so yes, I think this is clearly a better plan. This is something that obviously I am fully committed to for the sake of my children and the grandchildren that I don't have yet, but hoping to have one day, and everybody's grandchildren and future generations. I believe this is the right choice. I believe this is the right path for us. And this is an invitation for you and for everybody else to join. Now, it's important. Let's go to the next slide. I wanna acknowledge. You can see the new Hartford logo at the bottom of the presentation. I want to acknowledge you for being the first Rotary Club in the world and in the history of humanity to adopt the Climate Restoration Resolution. And that big thank you goes to Chuck for that. So I know that this is not new to you. You've heard about this before. You've taken your personal and club commitment, and that is very much appreciated. And today's conversation is about inviting you to take the next step, to be a little bit more proactive, to be a part of this community of people of all ages, all races, all religions that are working to restore the climate for future generations. So the goals that we have for next year are to launch 2 pilot projects, and we have 3 programs that we're managing in climate restoration. The first one is global greenhouse gas removal projects, and I'll say that very, very briefly, and we can have questions at the end if people want to know more about these solutions. But the only place that we can store 1 trillion tons of CO2 that are removed from the atmosphere is in the ocean. And the way to do that is like nature has been doing that for many years through photosynthesis. I didn't share the graph that goes back 800,000 years, but you would see there that we had 8 or 9 ice ages over the last 800,000 years, and ice age is caused because of photosynthesis that removed a lot of CO2 from the atmosphere, reduced the greenhouse effect, and let more heat go into space. That's how we get ice ages. We obviously don't want an ice age, but now, if you can go back to slide 3, Joe, now that we're so much above the safe level, we basically want to take out as much CO2 from the atmosphere as nature took out before every ice age. And the way to do that is to initiate photosynthesis in the ocean. We call this process ocean iron fertilization because the missing ingredient to kickstart this photosynthesis process is iron. Iron usually gets to the ocean from volcanoes or from dry winds that come from the desert with dust. And that iron allows for photosynthesis. Obviously, there's a lot of water, there's a lot of sun in the ocean. The missing component is the iron. So if we go back to slide 5. So the first program is about launching 2 pilot projects in the ocean. This methodology has been tested many times before, researched many times before, and we know how to do it. We have the experts to do it. So that's the plan. We're also developing at the same time, actually working with an Israeli startup to develop a satellite measurement program that would allow us to analyze images from existing satielites and measure how much CO2 is actually removed through these ocean-based projects. Process usually takes a few weeks. Almost immediately, within days or a couple of weeks, we see the ocean turn from blue to green. Blue ocean is very pretty, but it means that the ocean is dead. There is no life there. And green ocean means that the ocean is full of life. And in those experiments that were made in the past, we saw that after these projects of fertilizing the ocean with iron, we see the fish come back, the whales, the birds, and within 6 to 12 months, in the next season, the fish population is doubled, tripled, and quadrupled. So this is the side effect of restoring the climate using this method, is that we're reviving the ocean, we're reviving fisheries, and that's very, very important to some countries and some islands that rely on fishing. So this is the first program, and we're planning to launch these 2 projects next year. from the perspective of safety and governance, even though these projects will initially be small scale, we would like them to still go through the certification, the evaluation certification process of the Climate Restoration Safety and Governance Board to make sure that the process of evaluating and monitoring these projects is working fine, so that we have that in place when the projects become bigger and bigger in scale. Social license is very important because, you know, the ocean, there is no government that governs the ocean. There are only international treaties. And so environmental groups are sometimes opposing all kind of projects in the ocean. We want to get everybody around the table before we start the project, to get everybody to buy in, to support. And if there are any issues that need to be raised, any risk that need to be addressed, we want to know about them ahead of time. So that's what we mean by social license. The third program, we call it local, regional, commercial engagement. And this is about engaging with everybody, because even if somebody's doing, you know, organic vegetables in their backyard, or recycling plastic, or, you know, buying an electric vehicle, this is all part of us restoring the climate. This is all part of the goal of giving our children a world that we're proud of, a livable planet. So in that program, our plan is to engage with local representatives, mostly from global South countries, developing countries, and initiate those projects locally under the brand of climate restoration. So we're all restoring the climate together. Another aspect of the local and regional commercial engagement is to get a wide support and a wide fellowship for climate restoration. And for that, we've launched the Climate Restoration Alliance. Joe, if you can show us the website. The Climate Restoration Alliance is about getting everybody. Oh, we go with the screen. The Climate Restoration Alliance is about engaging with everybody. So as you can see on this, we have Chuck's picture here because Chuck is our official climate restoration ambassador to Rotary, and they're doing a great job in introducing climate restoration to Rotary clubs, to SRAG, the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, and to Rotary International Leadership. And it's complicated. It's a very big organization, and we're starting to work from the club level, as you can see. But eventually, what we want, we would like to see that Rotary adopts climate restoration as a global cause. And Rotary is a very powerful organization with people that care about the environment, about communities. And so that's the end goal, is to have Rotary as an organization aligned with this cause of climate restoration. But for now, we're starting on the club level. So the Climate Restoration Alliance is about getting organization networks like Rotary, getting faith leaders, Jewish, Christians, Muslims, Hindus. When we really go into it, we see that, first of all, there is only one God, even if we call it with different names. And all the different religions are talking about being stewards to creation, about protecting creation and not exploiting it. So faith leaders can deliver the message of climate restoration to their people using their language and their body of knowledge. Other influencers like Hollywood stars and titans of industries, and First Nation leaders that carry that commitment to the earth, to the soil, to the people, to all life. They're also a part of this, and we've been talking to them, and they basically say climate restoration is the prophecy we've been talking about for the last 500 years. So this is about the Climate Restoration Alliance, and one of the invitation here, after the Rotary Club of New Hartford adopted the resolution, the invitation is for you to go to Chuck's landing page that we see here on the screen. Joe, if you can scroll down a little bit, There's some background about the ambassador Chuck. There is a personal message from Chuck. There is information here if you want to go deeper to understand the solutions. The first one, as you can see, is ocean restoration, but there are other, Plan B and Plan C and so on. And then at the bottom, there is a webinar here that you can listen to Peter being interviewed and talk in depth about climate restoration. And then at the bottom, there is a sign-up page that you can sign as an organization, right? But you already did that as a club, but you can also sign up as individuals. And Chuck's huge salary as an ambassador, which is $0, right? Just to be clear, but huge salary is dependent on how many people sign up on this page. So please support Chuck and help him support us and sign up. I can see most of you don't have access to the Zoom, but Chuck, I think we can probably send out some summary email after that with the links so everybody can sign up to this to the Alliance using your landing page. And the Climate Restoration Alliance, like I said, is one of the programs of the Grandparents Fund for Climate Restoration. I want to show you that website as well. Scroll up all the way. So the Grandparents Fund, like I said, is the most recent organization that we launched. The mission of this organization is to fund the critical climate restoration programs that will restore a safe climate by 2050. Like I said, it's not a vision anymore. It's not a goal anymore. Now it's a project. And we're starting to do the work as early as next year. So, when we thought about who is our client, it's not governments. Governments care about voters and taxpayers, and future generations do neither of those. It's not corporations. Corporations care about making money for shareholders. So we realized that our customer is humanity. We're doing this for humanity, but within humanity, I think the grandparents is really the audience that we're reaching out to. I'm not a grandparent. I'm close enough. We've been living on this planet for several decades, enjoyed everything that it had to give us. And now it's time for us to make sure that when we hand over this planet to our kids and to our grandchildren, they would have at least a world as good as we got when we were their age. So that's why we called it the Grandparents Fund for Climate Restoration. And you can sign up. If you scroll down, there's a donation page here. But I think the most important thing that I want you to walk away from this today is to sign up to the Alliance using Chuck's page and set an example to other Rotary clubs as well. Joe, if we can go back to the presentation. So just a quick recap of the goals. We want to launch 2 projects, ocean-based projects with satellite measurements next year. We want to make sure that these projects go through our certification process to make sure that the certification process works and the projects are safe. We want to launch 72 local and regional projects. These could be waste management projects. We have projects about growing bamboo in various places in the world, projects about renewable energy, education, youth empowerment and leadership, and so on. And the Climate Restoration Alliance, which the invitation here is to sign up through Chuck's landing page. Our plan is to get 24 ambassadors. Some of them are going to be focused on networks like the Rotary, Earth Day networks, Elder Climate Action Network, and so on. And some of them are going to be focused on specific audiences, like the Climate Restoration Ambassador to Judaism, to Christianity, to the Aztec Nation, to the Vatican, and so on and so forth, right? So we have those people that are committed to climate restoration, delivering the message, and please sign up on Chuck's page. The last slide that I have is another invitation. On December 20th, just a few weeks from today, we're going to have a webinar hosting Peter Fiakovsky, the man that wrote the book on climate restoration. You can see the book on the right side, and we'll also send you the links to the book on Amazon. On December 20th, we'll have this webinar where Peter's going to be interviewed and discuss at length the climate restoration project, the Grandparents Fund for Climate Restoration, and the plans that we have for next year and for the rest of the decade and until 2050. That's it for the presentation. I appreciate your time and thank you very much for your listening. And now I'm happy to take questions or comments.
Ilan, one of the things that the New Hartford Rotary Club has put into place is a micro forest planting. Chuck, have you told Ilan about that?
You know,
Yes.
we're working on that.
Would that be one of the small local projects that would be helpful?
Yes, it's a great example for a project like that. Our approach, obviously, planting one micro forest is not going to restore the climate, obviously. But because we're doing these local projects and we're keeping track, I mentioned the Climate Restoration Network. The Climate Restoration Network is about local projects, right? So global and local. So a microforest project is obviously a local project, but the know-how, the technology, the experience, even the operations and the funding sources can be easily replicated across many places. And so this is one of the things that we want to accelerate, is this implementation of solutions that we know that work, so that not everybody has to reinvent the wheel and figure out, find all the answers. But if we already have the answers, we can then distribute them to many other places. So yes, absolutely, this is one great example. Any other questions?
Just one comment, Ilan. One of the things that may have been missed is there's an intermittent. We've already created a document for the Rotary Climate Restoration Resolution. And that's the one that Ilan has referenced it a number of times, but that's what was launched at the district conference where we had 60-some Rotarians sign up, including the district governors from each of the current districts that'll be part of CNY Rotary. And we've been putting this together. We kind of put it on hold, and we're getting ready to launch that resolution again. And that's really the first step into the conversation.
Yes, thank you very much, Chuck. And it's important to understand, we're working on two levels. One is to have governments adopt the climate restoration resolution. Local governments, the first one to do that was the Santa Clara County in California that officially adopted climate restoration resolution. The same person that worked with us on this in the Santa Clara County later on became a senator in California. And just in July this year, we were able to pass the same climate restoration resolution for the entire state of California. So, the next milestone is to get the US to adopt that, and for Biden to declare, like John Kennedy did, say we're going to get to the moon by the end of the decade. We would like Joe Biden to say we're going to restore the climate by mid-century. And then allow everybody else to not give up on the net zero conversation, but to divert from that and give enough focus to climate restoration. so that's one level that we're operating on the local, regional, national, and then eventually international government. The other aspect, which is what Chuck was mentioning, is to have organizations and group adopt a resolution. For example, one of the organizations that we partner with is the Global Youth Leadership Center, which is also another source for local and regional projects like that, this time youth-led projects, especially in the Global South. This is something we love to support. And so they endorse the resolution and Rotary clubs and task forces and so on. So if you have access or maybe even influence on a network or an organization or a company, and you would like to adopt the climate restoration resolution, not just as an individual, but also as an organization, that would be the process to do that. And you can do that on Chuck's page. You can sign up as an individual, and you can also sign up as an organization and then upload the signed climate restoration resolution, accepted by the board or the CEO or whoever the case might be. So we want individuals, want companies, organizations, movements, governments. Again, this is, it's something that affects every last person on this planet. So I'd like to ask you a question. First of all, how did my presentation make you feel? And compared to how you felt before the presentation? I mean, obviously you knew about climate restoration, but we see, disasters on the news almost on a daily basis. Is this conversation helping or causing you to be more hopeful?
That's exactly the word I was thinking to use, hopeful.
Very good. I think that's the first step, is to see the light at the end of the tunnel, to realize that there is a way out of this mess, which allows us then to take action. And so I'd like to see if you're willing, in show of hands, who is willing to make the commitment to sign up on Chuck's page. Perfect. Thank you very much. We have a way to track these things, so I will hold you to your word. Chuck, is there a way for us to maybe send an email to everybody in attendance or everybody in the club with the recording of the conversation and those links that we discussed?
The recording, the links we can do. I actually forwarded the link to you, Jim and Jim, so you can put it in the and Jeremy. I think I put it in.
Excellent. So Chuck, you and I, we can work on this email together. We'll figure out exactly how and when to send it. And how many of you are interested in attending the December 20th webinar to learn more about this? I believe it's going to be at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Very good. So I can tell you, Peter is a fascinating person. He's a established serial entrepreneurs with a successful startup in the Silicon Valley that allowed him to be a global philanthropist for the last 2 or 3 decades. He worked on eradicating hunger. He worked on getting people out of poverty using microloans. And then his recent focus over the last decade or so was on the climate. He's a physicist with 27 patents and the author of the book that I mentioned. Highly recommended to come and participate in this webinar. I'm sure we're going to get deeper into the solutions. And by the way, I just mentioned one solution, which is the ocean iron fertilization. Are you interested in hearing a few words about the other solutions?
Yes.
Very good. So ocean iron fertilization, like I said, is the #1 solution because of the scale and also because of the cost. It's relatively cheap to get the iron and to rent the boats and take them out to sea and do the work. And most of it is going to be paid by the extra revenue generated from fishing. So that's, as a matter of fact, some of the governments that we're talking to, especially in Africa, are more interested in reviving the fisheries, which is their immediate need, than the long-term goal of climate restoration, even though these two things go hand in hand and we want both. The second solution is called synthetic limestone. And this is what Chuck mentioned at the beginning of this meeting. Basically, there is a technology today that is fully developed and commercialized that can take CO2 from the atmosphere, mix it up with calcium, and create synthetic limestone. And that limestone can be sold as aggregate for the construction company and used instead of the actual limestone that we're now mining with a lot of pollution and environmental impacts and transporting it for many hundreds of miles. We can actually produce the limestone next to the construction site. And then instead of having the construction industry be one of the more polluting industries, using the synthetic limestone, this negative limestone, actually, the more we build roads and improve our infrastructure to deal with the climate change and so on, we're actually removing more CO2 from the atmosphere. The downside here that obviously this is a technological based solution. It's very expensive to develop the technology and so on, but eventually this technology will pay for itself because we can sell the aggregate, and this is a viable business model that a few companies already apply. The third solution is also based on nature. It's open ocean, large-scale seaweed cultivation. It's very similar to the idea of planting forests on land. But obviously, in the ocean, we have twice the surface area and way more depth. Growing seaweed in large scale is not only going to remove large amounts of CO2 from the atmosphere, but also provide food security to a lot of people, jobs for a lot of people, and create replacement for polluting industries. For example, one of the products we can make from seaweed, except for food, of course, is what we call, it's not a fertilizer, it's an additive that we add to agriculture, and it just replaces chemical fertilizers and pesticides. So there's a lot of good side effects, good side benefits from growing seaweed. The fourth solution, which is not a climate restoration solution per se, because it's not about removing CO2, is called methane oxidation. These are also ocean-based projects. We know that methane is much shorter lived in the atmosphere. CO2 can stay in the atmosphere for hundreds of years, but methane is broken within about 10 years. But methane, on the other side, is a much more potent greenhouse gas than CO2. Actually, one molecule of methane is equal to 80 molecules of CO2 in terms of the impact. Additionally to that, methane levels have tripled since the beginning of industrial revolution. So the impact of methane on global warming is significant. And using this method of methane oxidation, basically spraying iron chloride from exhausts of ships that go around the ocean, that breaks down, oxidates the methane molecules to CO2 and water. Very harmless, has no side effects, and can reduce temperature, we estimate, back to 2000 levels. if we do that by the end of the decade. So as we ramp up the operations of climate restoration, we're also going to use this methane oxidation approach to cool down the planet by, let's say, about 0.5 degree, so that those extreme events that we're seeing are not going to get worse and worse, and eventually destabilize our entire economy and our ability to finish climate restoration work by mid-century. So these are the big four solutions that we like to call them, and then we have everything else, which is those local and regional projects. So as you can see, this is really getting everybody to work together to restore the climate. Very good. I don't know how much time I have left.
I think you went by it.
Okay, very good. So
one thing I'd like to say before you end up signing off, give you insights. Peter Fikowski, when I first met him, I invited him to go to one of our Monday night presentations for the SRAG leadership team. And after the first presentation he was on, he actually became a member of SRAG. So Peter is a non-Rotarian SRAG. And after interacting with Ilan for a short period of time, Ilan is now a Rotarian. So thank you, Ilan, for joining our membership. I want everyone to know that they are both faction. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Very good. So to recap, we have a hopeful message. We have a roadmap to a future that we want. We need your help. We need everybody to participate. And the first step is to sign up to the Climate Restoration Alliance on Chuck's page. And please join us on December 20th for the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.